Our first, this is why I did not get up and start with the theatrics before. It's kind of like I sit here and there's a word between what I want to say, the one word and the next, and I can never remember what that word is. But we're going to pick up on our themes of place and promise and have a panel which is talking about sustainability education. And to moderate this panel, we have Yona Sipos. She's the moderator for the session, as well as the moderator. And she's a Ph.D. student in the Integrated Studies in Land and Food Systems and a graduate academic assistant at the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. Her work in both capacities focuses on community-based sustainability education. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to continue the discussion that we've begun this morning about the UBC Place and Promise and the strategic plan that the university has put forward. And the focus of this session is going to be on the sixth of six of the Place and Promise goals, and that is around sustainability. And so I'm not going to read out all of the aspects of sustainability that are outlined by UBC, but I will just say that I encourage you to check it out because there's actually very clear goals and actions that have been outlined by the university as to how we might advance our sustainability mandate at the university and beyond. Beyond the specific actions, though, what I would encourage you to think about as you have an opportunity to look at the UBC Place and Promise is the opportunity that it affords us as educators and as students at the university to rethink what we do here and how we do it. And so we live in really exciting times to be able to rethink, re-examine some of our teaching and learning content and context. And UBC, of course, already has some of the world's leading experts in sustainability education. We have an incredible wealth of programs here at the university. So what we're going to have today is the opportunity to just hear some of the bright lights that are circling all around and all throughout the campus and beyond. And one of the main questions that drove us to put together this panel, which I'm really excited to turn the mic over to in just a moment, was the opportunity to think, for all of us engaged here, to think about how we as educators and how we as students need support. What is the kind of support that we need to integrate sustainability education into our learning and into our practice here? And to be really creative in thinking about that and to really think large, to think, we heard today, this morning about learning spaces, and we went everything from the in-depth perspective on classrooms to the UBC farm. So to really allow your mind to be that big and that broad when we think about sustainability education and sustainability learning, and to be conscious of the fact that it happens not only in lecture halls, but also on our way to the lecture halls and in between our classes as we go to eat and as we go around campus. So we have, before I introduce the panel of educators, I'll just say that I work with a really exciting team at CTLT around sustainability education, starting with Kelly Fleming. I'll just ask people to do a little wave. Sorry, so Kelly Fleming is one of the senior managers of teaching, learning, and professional development. So she heads up our team, and Brian Lamb, who's waving his hand over there, is one of the strategists around teaching and learning, particularly around open education and sustainability. And Angela Willock is our undergraduate sustainability education assistant who does great work and is very well connected around campus. So we have an exciting team. We have a lot of interest in your ideas around how to present opportunities to advance sustainability education. And so without further ado, I'll pass it over to the panel so that we can hear about some of those specific examples. First, we're going to hear from Jean Marcus, who's the Associate Director for the University Sustainability Initiative, a new campus hub. And she will speak about university-wide initiatives around sustainability education. After her words, I'll just give you a little rundown of the overview for the session. After Jean speaks, we'll have opportunity for a few questions. And then we're going to move on to the rest of the panel, who are all past participants of one of the evolving programs at CTLT called the Sustainability Education Intensive. So we'll go from big to more specific, and we'll have time for questions and interaction in between. So without further ado, Jean, I will pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Ooh. Am I okay? I have this. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So I know we have a lot of speakers to share their ideas with you, so I'm going to try and keep this quick. I'm going to introduce you first to the strategic context of sustainability at UBC, and then I'm going to speak a little bit about the emerging roles of this new USI Teaching and Learning Office. So could I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So as you know, Place and Promise is UBC's strategic plan. And in that plan, right up in the vision statement, there is a clear commitment to create an exceptional learning environment that advances a civil and sustainable society. So UBC has a long and rich history of leadership in sustainability. So since 1998, we've had a campus sustainability office, which was focused mainly on operational sustainability at UBC. But then in the spring of 2009, we initiated a process to develop a strategic plan around sustainability itself with the intent of integrating operational sustainability with academic sustainability. So this mid-level plan is called the Sustainability Academic Strategy. As I said, the process was initiated in the spring of 2009. There was about a 6-month consultation process where the working group that was headed up by John Robinson consulted with various stakeholders, both on and off campus. And then that culminated in the submission of the Sustainability Academic Strategy document, which can be found on the website there. And it was submitted to the UBC executive in October of last year. And so, next slide, please. So this is just an outline of the table of contents of that document. So it was divided into the 3 main areas of business at the university. So teaching and learning, research and service, and operations and administration. And under each of those headings, there were specific recommendations speaking to how we can advance sustainability in each of those particular areas. And then what was interesting is there was also an implementation section. And one of the key calls that came out of that section is that UBC, there was the recommendation that UBC needs to develop a strategic management group that can basically be the mechanism for helping to implement the recommendations in this document. So next slide, please. Thanks. So this call was heard, and in January of 2010, President Stephen Toope announced the UBC Sustainability Initiative. So this is a new umbrella organization under which the existing Campus Sustainability Office now sits under there, and it also catalyzed the formation of a Teaching and Learning Office and a Research and Partnerships Office. So I'm going to now speak more closely to the Teaching and Learning Office and what we're doing there. So if you'll recall back to that table of contents, you saw that there were recommendations under each of those 3 headings. So for teaching and learning, this is kind of a snapshot of what those recommendations look like. So the first one really speaks to how can we improve student access on campus to sustainability learning opportunities. So there's quite a bit of language. There's probably almost a page that's associated with just this one recommendation. But in essence, it's speaking to the fact that we need to develop comprehensive online resources to do a good job of communicating out and articulating the strengths in sustainability education that we currently have, that a student advising office would be great. And then it also has this kind of vision piece that we would like to get to in a couple years, 5 years, say, be in a situation where every student who arrives at UBC, regardless of their degree program, has an opportunity to study sustainability. And so the language that's used here is that we're looking at developing pathways to sustainability learning. So, back please. So the second recommendation is around the establishment of teaching and learning fellows that can really be our mechanism to help improve and advance our curriculum around sustainability. So that's what the second recommendation is about. And then the third one is speaking to the recognition that Yona said earlier, just as she was introducing, that sustainability learning happens everywhere, not just in the classroom. So how can we start to formalize that those learning experiences are happening beyond the classroom? Thanks. So now I'm going to speak a bit more closely to the emerging roles of the Teaching and Learning Office. So our mandate, as we're expressing it right now, is that we're here to coordinate, support, and enhance both undergraduate and graduate sustainability education at UBC Vancouver's campus. And so I'm just going to take you through how our roles are emerging under each of these 3 kind of categories. So in a coordination role, one of the first things that we did is that we were hearing a lot from students that there was, there are all these great courses going on and activities and opportunities, but it was really challenging to find them. So we created a new integrated sustainability website because there was for over 10 years a campus sustainability website. So we joined forces with the campus sustainability office and we created a new integrated website that has a campus sustainability section, a teaching and learning section, and a research section. And under the teaching and learning section, we're really striving to be kind of the hub of sustainability education resources and activities on campus. So we have 4 different areas to this website. The first is curriculum, where students can go and find all the listing of 4-credit courses, programs, and alternative credit options. There's a section called continuing education, which speaks to lifelong learning opportunities for mid-career professionals. And then there's an area called support for educators. And I know you can't really see it up here, but if you go to the website, I assure you they're there. And the support for educators section highlights those initiatives like the SEI that Yona was just introducing and that you'll hear about today later in the panel, are those programs that help to develop the capacity of faculty members, staff, and students to integrate sustainability into their courses or their initiatives. And then finally, we have a Beyond the Classroom section, which I'm hoping will become a really useful tool for students who are interested in finding sustainability-oriented student groups or volunteer opportunities. Thanks. So in a supporting capacity, we are also, I should have mentioned back on the slide where I showed you kind of the organization of this new UBC Sustainability Initiative, we're going to be, all those 3 offices will be moving into a building called CIRS, the Center for Interactive Research on Sustainability, which is currently being built on campus. It'll be one of the greenest buildings in North America. And we're moving in there, we'll be cohabitating that space come July, August of this summer. And what's really exciting is on the ground floor of CIRS, right in the lobby, we're going to have a small student advising office. So it'll actually be a place of contact where students can have face-to-face, one-on-one time with someone who can help them identify what programs or courses or faculties they should go and speak to for further advice. And then, so the last couple slides that I'm going to talk to you about are how we're taking on this role of enhancing curriculum. So we've launched 2 programs this year, and I should mention that our office is about 4 or 6 months old, so we're just getting going. And we launched something that we're calling the Spotlight Program, where we have a small amount of funds that we're making available to faculty members, instructors on campus who are teaching courses, and they want to integrate more sustainability content or kind of re-examine their pedagogical approach or try and open that course up to more students. And so basically it's a competitive process, instructors will write a proposal and then we'll select 4 courses to give $5,000 a year to help make those changes happen. So the only caveat is, if you're interested, is that it has to be a course that's on the books to be taught in the upcoming academic year. So these are the 4 courses that we're supporting this year. And then our final program is that we've actually launched the fellowship program. So we have 6 faculty members from 5 different faculties across campus working with us. Their names and their pictures are up there. And these faculty members are really kind of our conduit, our mechanism for changing curriculum or enhancing, I shouldn't say, like enhancing existing curriculum as well. And so currently we had our first meeting back in September 1st of last month, and they're working hard to kind of come up with a framework for conceptualizing how we can advance undergraduate sustainability education on campus. And then come January, they're going to start articulating projects, i.e. like potentially a new course proposal, et cetera. So again, if you're a faculty member who's interested in this, keep tabs on the website. We're going to be putting out the application call for next year's fellows, probably in around April of this year. And the fellowship programs is designed so that faculty members commit to 1 year with the potential to renew for another 12 months. So I think I'll end there because I know we're short on time. So thank you for your time. And the 3 photos up there, that's who currently belongs to our teaching and learning, sustainability teaching and learning office. Up at the top is Nicholas Coops, who's a faculty member in forestry. He's the director of the office. I'm the Associate Director, and Andrew Reisman works with our office in the capacity of a liaison to the UBC Farm. And then plus we have our Spotlight recipients and our fellows as well. So thanks very much.
Jean, just before you go, thank you so much. And we'll just take the opportunity here to see if there's any questions. Are people familiar with the USI? Is this work that you're coming across already this semester? No? New information? Yeah, a few nods. Okay, so we'll just take, just to see if anybody has questions here, if you want to hear a little bit more about any of the programs that were expressed, if you're interested in following up, if you're interested in getting involved in future programs, Jean has put the information up. Any hands? Yes, Michelle.
I have one question about the student advising side, because one of the challenges that we have for students is the number of places we ask them to go in order to get help. And when we were working with the distance learning students, we made the explicit decision to actually transfer that capacity and those people over into Brock Hall in order that students had one hub. Now, that also says students who are on that side of campus always have to come over here, though they do it a lot. So I'm wondering if you're looking at, in terms of the advising office, whether you're looking at any kind of even electronic linkages between them, so you have a video conference link up between Brock Hall and Arts Advising Hub, et cetera, into your hub. And it's also kind of sustainable.
No, that's a great question, actually. And I guess what I should reiterate, first thing, is that it's a very small office. So really it's an office for a student advisor who will be tasked with maintaining the website and other things. And because services, we're hoping will be kind of a draw because it's such a sustainable building and it has lots of interactive interfaces, it will be a place that students can go. But clearly it's one conduit, and what we're working on right now too is how can we link up, exactly as you said, with the other kind of natural homes where students go to seek that advice to ensure that we have those relationships built and that we're communicating out properly on that. So yeah, great point. And I'll just say too, I'll leave up at the front here if anyone would like to pick them up. We have some bookmarks that has the website URL on the back, so feel free to pick that up. And yeah, and also feel free to email me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Jean. All these, oh look, I have an abundance of microphones. I'll just use one. Thank you very much, Jean. And I think we'll pick up on, we're going to continue to pick up on the themes that Jean started to raise through hearing from the SEI participants. And I'll just spend a moment here to contextualize the SEI, or the Sustainability Education Intensive, just a little bit further. The SEI is a program that's based on a number of successful U.S. programs that were aimed at first greening the curriculum of university and college courses, and then turned its attention to the broader landscape of sustainability. And so in 2007, I think, the Sustainability Office from UBC sent a number of people down to a training session in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places. But we went and we found out what was happening across the states that was so successful, that was really peer-based, that was about creating change from a grassroots level, and that was supporting educators in what they already do and what they're already interested in. So meeting people where they are, recognizing the expertise that they hold, and looking for ways and strategies and resources to support their processes. So when we came back to UBC and started to think about how that kind of program could practically work here, we thought that one of the tenets of the UBC teaching community seems to be inclusivity, or is striving for inclusivity, and that includes the types of educators. So we've heard a couple of times already about education happening in many different places across the campus, and so when we were designing the Sustainability Education Intensive, we defined educators as professors, as instructors, graduate students, and undergraduate students and staff in various capacities, so in formal and non-formal programs. We also decided that it would be a richer experience if the possibility was opened up to people beyond UBC, so that there could be also cross-campus exchange of ideas. And so we're still in the process of developing this type of idea. It's really under evolution, and so your feedback would be very interested. We would be very interested in your feedback. We did also have an advisory group, and we had several rounds of meetings with the Sustainability Across the Curriculum Community of Practice that is still ongoing, and so we did solicit quite a bit of feedback, and we'll continue to do so. But in the meantime, we've managed to launch 2 years of this program where we've had full houses both times and have been really excited about the types of responses that we've gotten from educators across campus, and to have professors, instructors, staff, and students all be able to participate collectively and collaboratively in rethinking their educational programs on campus. So I'm really pleased that we were able to put together a panel that reflects some of the diversity of roles and responsibilities and on campus. And you're going to have to hear from me as one of the participants, although I wasn't a participant, because I've gotten the notes from one of our panel speakers who at the last minute wasn't able to join us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass it over. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then as you're listening to them, I'll just ask you, even though research shows that we're actually not very good at multitasking, I'll ask you while you're listening to the panelists, to just imagine a space in which the stories that you're hearing up here are being replicated by 1,000 across campus. And so imagine what this story, what these series of stories might look like in your unit, in your department, in your office, in your space. And imagine, if you can, this other layer of consciousness around how that might play out. And we'll have just a couple of moments for conversation, hopefully afterwards, about some ideas that you're coming up with as you listen to people who are already going through this process. So I will pass it over, and we'll just go in line, and we will have questions at the end.
Hi, my name is Farah Shroff. I teach in the Faculty of Medicine. I'm in 2 departments, in family practice and in the School of Population and Public Health. And I come to sustainability because in my field, we look at the big question of what is it that makes people healthy? What are the roots of health? And surprising to most people who don't work in this field, what it is that makes people healthy are largely social aspects of our lives. And so we know that income and social status are the 2 things that really make a huge difference to people's health status, meaning that poverty and low social status are 2 of the things that make people really unhealthy. So I came to the Sustainability Education Intensive to develop a course that looked at global social movements that really were able to sustain themselves using music, creativity, spirituality. I wanted to give students an opportunity to really see how people themselves in communities are able to take charge of their own destiny and to do things that are durable, are sustainable over a long period of time. And it really was a wonderful experience. I've got to thank Yona and Angela and Alice and all the other people who put it together. Thank you very much for the creativity and the sustainability that you brought to the whole event. It was a great group of people, and it's really nice to have a little reunion with at least one of them today. So this course that I'm developing is roughly going to be called Social Justice Movements Around the World. And for me, it's a really important time in our juncture in the history of the world today that we look at groups around the world that have the enormous bravery to struggle against huge issues of corruption and narcotics and drug industries, and people around the world who often take their lives into their own hands to work towards sustainability. And Jean, I'm sure, mentioned that typically when we look at sustainability, we look at environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. And the movements that I'm looking at in this course primarily look at social sustainability, but all of those 3 issues are integrated. So it's almost impossible not to touch on those 3 parts of sustainability when we're looking at things. So the kinds of organizations and movements that we're going to be studying in this course are, for example, the Zapatista movement in Mexico, which is an indigenous-based land rights movement, which has really done a lot of education with indigenous peoples in a very peaceful and nonviolent fashion, mainly, using a lot of words and poetry. Very, very creative. We're going to look at social movements in modern-day Iran today. It's very hard for people to get access to the kinds of things that are happening in Iran today because there's a media ban, and it's very hard to know what actually people are doing to grasp their own social justice. And there's a lot happening. And thanks to things like Twitter and some of the new technologies, we actually have access to a lot of this stuff. So I know I don't have very much time. I'll stop there in saying that I really feel that it's very, very important that at a university level, we look at these really big social problems. It's so easy to feel that we're in recessionary times and that all we should be doing is creating jobs in the university. And jobs are really, really important. And it's also really important that we look at how we in the university can be part of the solution to these big, huge social problems. And we really can be. We have so much potential to train students to make a difference in the world and to be brave and courageous to speak out against injustice. And so on that note, I just want to tell you very, very briefly about an event that did happen here last week on campus, which I think was a beautiful illustration of how sustainability can happen on a university campus and can tackle really big social issues. It was an event, I've got the poster for it right here. It was called Healthy Mothers and Healthy Babies, and Amnesty International approached me to do a talk on this subject, and I invited a series of other speakers to come and talk with me. And as most of the events that happen that CTLT organizes, we made sure that the first welcome and the first emphasis was on Indigenous peoples. And again, Indigenous peoples' land-based struggles are a really integrated way of looking at sustainability. The topic that we were talking about largely was how we're going to reduce maternal mortality rates in the world. And it's one of those issues that also really integrates environmental, economic, and social justice issues. Currently, about 1,000 women die every day, largely from pregnancy and childbirth-related complications. And the greatest and the deepest roots of those deaths are poverty and unequal access to good medical care. So at this event, we were able to really grapple with what the United Nations had just been meeting to talk about, which was the Millennium Development Goals. And so we had a really good opportunity to integrate the university, various other players in the community, and to bring interdisciplinary voices to this really important topic. So I think I'll leave it there and let Matt come next. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks, Farah. My name is Matt Zustovich. I'm an undergraduate with the Faculty of Forestry in my third year. So the forest industry, as you all know, has been taking it pretty hard as the general public's interest in the forest sector is becoming more to do with conservation and preservation of wildlife. So the industry has to rapidly evolve in order to make sure that it can survive. So it's really, really visible within our faculty. The newest program that they've created is the Natural Resource Conservation Program, which is the program I'm in, and also what about half of the kids in the faculty in the undergraduate programs are enrolled in. So the entire view of the industry is changing, and it's really growing to accept conservation as one of its forefronts. So within the faculty, we've got a strong group of undergraduate, graduates, faculty, and staff that have created the Forestry Sustainability Group, where we take into account increasing the accessibility of sustainable methods such as composting and greener waste. Also increasing the quality of life within the building, called the Living Atrium Project, where we are growing a bunch of different plants and learning how to take care of them and make the general atmosphere of the building that much better. Also increasing awareness of sustainability for the people within the building. So that was where we're having the most difficulty, and that's where the SEI stepped into play. This very, very broad topic of what we wanted to do, and we found that a lot of the feedback we were getting was that it was just too broad. We needed to narrow our intentions and narrow our actual goals for the event. So taking that into account, our project has evolved as well. We are now starting the Living Atrium Talks, which is just a bunch of different talks that'll be talking about different forms of sustainability. We just started this week, actually, with the Celebrate Learning Week. On Tuesday, we had a big walk through the native forests in Pacific Spirit Park, telling people a little bit about the native species that you'll find there and how to identify invasives that you can see there, so you know the general health of the forest that you're around you. Also, just yesterday, we had a talk with Stephen Shepard on visualizing climate change. He's also one of the professors that are teaching that new the new course that's being introduced that Jean was talking about, which was very, very interesting. Just trying to make what the future environment will look like with these numbers that we're being given. 2% increases in our temperatures and 3 millimeter increases in sea levels, and actually being able to see what that'll look like in how it relates to us. And we're actually doing very, very well now. We're increasing the amount of people that know about us and the amount of people that want to get involved. We've got plans to increase the Living Atrium project and increase the biodiversity inside our building. And our talks are going to keep going. On November 3rd, we've got a talk with Rob Guy, who will be talking about native medicinal plants growing on your backyard patio, which is actually something that our building does. We've got a really, really nice display of ethnobotany plants in our own space. So thank you so much, and have a good rest of your conference.
Hello, my name is Nalco Ellis, and I teach in the Faculty of Applied Science and the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering. So what do chemical and biological engineers do? Well, we're the ones who basically provide things that you use or consume on a daily basis, such as fuel for your car, processed foods and packaging, to pesticides, to detergents. So these, wonder which way should I go? Okay, so just keep on going. And so basically we, in our department, our graduate students perhaps go to refineries, chemical plants, and for the long history of chemical engineers, we've been aware of pollution prevention. We've had courses in green engineering, let's say wastewater management and whatnot. But I come sort of from another sort of perspective in that I believe that sustainability should be integrated into pretty much every course that we teach. In many of the aspects, the technical aspects of our courses, we do have a lot of economical assessment tools and, well, technical tools to assess. However, we still have a long ways to go in terms of touching on sustainability within our courses. So that was sort of my starting point before coming to SCI, and sort of networked with wonderful people that were here. I guess that was the first year of SCI, so a few of you perhaps maybe here. And what that has given me was the great resource, a tap into the resource that was almost already here. And it was a matter of me just sitting down and sort of collectively with the other SCI participants to come up with some of the how to tap into that resource. And that was a great thing that I took away. So going back in this course, I've been teaching for a little while now, and last year was the first sort of year which was implemented in terms of all these sort of ideas that I've developed through SCI, and I'll just tell a little bit about some of those. One of the things that we've done was a group project called Unit Around Us, and basically this particular course called Unit Operations is a fairly dry technical course where you learn about how to mix particle and fluids, and then you learn about how to separate them through cyclones and different things. And so what I've told them was to go around the campus or wherever they may be living, find a unit, identify them, and to see if you can make it better. And we had 23 projects. I have about 120 students in this class come up with very innovative and creative things that they've looked at, some of which were looking at skimming the oil, so oil spills, to coffee roasting down the road to how the environmental impact is of the coffee roasting process, to car washing, to many different things. And the output of that was the actual just 7-minute presentation. And there were PowerPoint presentation, there were movies made, but there were also skits and there were interpretive dances that I sort of have to think that I don't think any chemical engineer, typical chemical engineer, would have even thought that that was possible. But we all really sort of had a great time sort of looking at different ideas. Now, moving on to the second course, had the 36 students that were actually in the first course, and this time I connected with the SEEDS project. I have been doing a number of SEEDS projects which were initiated by students, but this time I sort of divided 36 students into 4 groups, and I'll let you know what they are. Basically, they worked with, one group worked with the farm, the other one with the composter, or UBC composting facilities, the other one was UBC steam plant, and the aquatic center. So what they did, I mean, I'm sure a number of you have know of the SEEDS project, but basically we work with the staff, the faculty, which is myself, and the students for a accredited course. They each met with the clients, identified some of the areas that they could improve in terms of sustainability, whether energy efficiency or reusing some of the composted material to some other purposes. And basically produced a report which is now available on the SEEDS library. I hope that this would continue on. In fact, some of the comments from the farm was that they wanted to see some of the project or the ideas to be realized, so that we'll be working on that in the future. So what I want the students to take away from taking some of the courses that I've sort of implemented, these SCI concepts, is that I want them to be able to ask the key questions as engineers to say, are there any better ways to do so? Just not really settle with what has been done technically, but there's got to be better or cleaner ways to do, come up with the processes. So those are some of the things that we're working on. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I am now going to speak on behalf of Margaret Gardner, who was our 4th panelist, who unfortunately isn't able to be here today. But I asked her to give me a few notes because I really didn't want to lose her perspective. So Margaret is a program assistant with the First Nations Language Program here at UBC. And one of the reasons that I thought her story was so powerful was also because it was an example of something that was, another example of something that was outside of a classroom. So the group, so I'm going to attempt now to do justice to Margaret's story, but of course I'm not going to be able to do it as well as her, so bear with me. One of the unique aspects of the First Nations language program is that it incorporates a really diverse group of educators who are experienced or who are becoming retrained in First Nations languages across BC. And you know that there's over 30 traditional languages in this province alone. So we're dealing with an extremely rich and varied cultural history and present that there's an incredible momentum around to reinvigorate and to grow that. And the staff that Margaret works with most particularly is geographically scattered. They're located across the province. They include people who work with urban Native youth in Vancouver. They work with the Musqueam people, with Kwantlen up in Alert Bay, out to the east and up north. So there's a real diversity of areas and languages that people are coming from, and as instructors, they don't often have the chance to all come together to the same place. So part of the sustainability education project that Margaret and her team were able to galvanize around was to bring people together, to actually physically be in the same space, and to have an opportunity to do a series of small workshops for their group to advance the social cohesion and also, in turn, improve the programs that they're offering for the languages. So one of the highlights that she asked me to share was that they went to see Wade Davis, who, of course, talks about disappearance of species, but in recent, not even that recent years, has really turned a lot of his attention to disappearing languages and to look at the analogies between the extinction rates of those topics. So they saw Wade Davis. They were able to spend time together, particularly with curriculum development and looking at case studies from these diverse groups across BC to look at commonalities of how they can in turn become better teachers. So that's just an example that I wanted to share with you of another type of sustainability education project that one of our UBC staff members was able to initiate here to enhance the First Nations language program at UBC. And the reason that we wanted to showcase these projects, and these are a smattering of the projects, these are some of the bright stars, but there are many others as well, was to also give you the opportunity to think about what would be your sustainability education project. And so before we move into questions, I'll just ask you to turn to the person or maybe two people beside you with these questions in mind. So from your experience, what does sustainability education look like at UBC? And if that's a question that doesn't resonate with you, if you're like, I have no idea, I wouldn't know it if it hit me in the face, then start to think about how you might know it if you saw sustainability education. What can you imagine it looking like broadly across the university? And once you've moved past the broad stage, just think if you can think of any examples from your own experience, your own teaching, your own learning here on campus. And we'll just take about 5 minutes to do that. So in groups of 2 or 3, what does sustainability education at UBC look like in your experience? What could it look like? We'll just take 5 minutes there. So just about a minute to wrap up your thought, and then we'll come back as a group. Okay, everyone, I'm really sorry to break up your conversations, but I'm going to. So I hope that in every group, trio or group, that there might be something you might be interested in adding to what makes an exceptional learning environment at UBC. So I'll just make another pitch for the wiki station over there. And I'll just turn the floor over to you, the people, to share with us what are questions that came up, what are examples that came up here, what are questions that you have for the panelists. So this is just an open discussion now for us to check in about sustainability education. Yes.
I have a really basic question, since I've just been talking with these ladies here who are visiting from Beijing. What does sustainability mean? Well, there's a basic assumption here, and it's very confusing for people who haven't decided what the word means.
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. It's one that comes up quite a lot. And it's one that we intentionally decided not to start the session with by defining it. One of the reasons is because there are so many different ways to define it. I will actually just say another piece on this, and then I'll turn it back over to the group to see if anybody else has anything to say about sustainability education or what sustainability is, and to the panelists. But just to say that there are resources online, so to supplement whatever discussion we have here, to really check on the sustain.ubc.ca site, and we have a RefWorks, an online catalog of resources, but about sustainability particularly. And I'll just leave it there, and I'll just ask the panelists if any of you are interested in grabbing the mic to attempt that question.
I like things really simple. So when I think of sustainability, I think of justice and divided into environmental, social, and economic justice.
Anyone else? So if that's a definition of sustainability that we can start with, then what's sustainability education?
I think I need a little more context on that. So you're saying the three different parts, and then you put the word justice after it. What does that mean?
So sustainability for me is really about asking ourselves how we're going to make the world a better place in all of those ways. It's very, very easy, especially for those of us who work at a university, to analyze and describe the problems. We can talk about pollution, we can talk about corruption, we can talk about all the problems. There are lots and lots of them. And my Ph.D. is in sociology, and people write libraries full of social problems. That's my entire field. And so sustainability to me is very exciting because it's looking at some of the responses or solutions to some of these big injustices in the world. So that's what it means. And it really means a lot of different things in very, very different contexts. So I've just given as broad a brush, because here we are from 3 different faculties talking about sustainability, and it really is one of those wonderful concepts that can be used in absolutely every discipline. And it's for those of us within our own disciplines to ask ourselves, how can we bring these issues of sustainability to our discipline? Largely what I've found is that it comes from environmentalism. So the concept of sustainability has come largely from people who are looking at how to bring the ecosystem to a healthier place. And so it's spreading out from there.
Also, because sustainability is so multidisciplined, like Jean was saying, it's really, really hard. The more that you define it and the more that you narrow it down, the more it excludes people. So sustainability has to be something that encompasses everyone. You know, like if you really want to narrow it down, yes, it is about making sure that things are still around for our children, but it's also You know, if you want to add more people to it, it's without losing any economic gain for the people who are around right now. And then if you want to take it further than that, it's about making sure that everyone feels equal and justified. Like, it's very difficult to narrow it down when you want it to be so encompassing.
One more thing to add to that point is that, so CTLT, of course, is the group, the previous groups of TAG and OLT working together. What TAG did previously was create a series of workshops around developing a literacy in sustainability, particularly to address that question. It's in many ways, it's a basic question, but it's a very, very fundamental, important question. And what we did for those workshops, I'll just give you a very quick overview, was actually to put up a broad range of definitions. And we never made an attempt to come together with one definition that was going to speak to all people, but rather to be able to bring a critical mind, critical thinking to the variety of definitions to say, who does that include? Is it leaving anybody out? What's the time frame involved? What values underlie the definitions? What assumptions are built into them? And so it really is a process of engaging with the questions in that way. So thank you for that. I don't like to start with it. I just like to see if anybody brings it up. So thank you for bringing it up. So let's maybe just turn our attention back to the panelists and to just remind ourselves of the projects that we've heard here. If there weren't projects that you wanted to share with the ideas that you were discussing, are there any questions for the panelists? Yes, in the back.
I was wondering why the panelists, except for the young scholar from forestry, no one brought up the question of our major problem for sustainability of the planet is we're on a carbon-based economy, which is the big one, right? And there's something basically wrong with us as a species when we're using something that's much less carbon-based, natural gas, billions of cubic feet we're using to warm up to get the oil out of the ground, which is very high in carbon burning. So we're just irrational. And no one seems to, except for T-Bone Pickens and a few others, seem to be addressing this question. Why would we burn billions and billions of cubic feet of, trillions actually, of cubic feet of something that's low in carbon when it's burnt to produce something that's high in carbon when it's burnt?
Because I think the reason that a lot of people avoid the subject is because in order to make those kind of changes happen, it takes radical change. And when you do bring up concepts like that, people just kind of shut down and look at you. It needs to be a much more gradual shift. And that's what's happening. Is it happening too slowly? We don't know. But in order to actually like sit there and say, an oil-based lifestyle, is that what we should be doing? Nobody's going to be able to jump on your side and say, no, it isn't, because we can't survive without it right now.
Right, but you mentioned to go at it gradually, but as you know very well, that it would take 2,000 years if we stopped every little bit of pollution right now. It would take 2,000 years for the atmosphere to go back to normal temperature, of the world, the global temperature. So we don't have a lot of time to think about this. I mean, we're still positively accelerating in that curve.
Yeah, and one thing that, what we did, oh, sorry. When you're done. Okay, one thing that we've done, the Visualizing Climate Change course, basically what it's doing is it's taking all these numbers that we're hearing, like a 3 millimeter rise in sea level, and actually giving you a visualization of what that looks like. So, you'll see a beautiful landscape on the Delta ocean front, all these lovely houses, and a 3 millimeter increase in the sea level can actually, take out the first 3 houses in that line. Or for the people who are really interested, the dikes that are built along the Delta line are about here. But with the increases that they're talking about, they're thinking of expanding it to about here, which means that all of those beautiful oceanscapes that you see are going to be gone. So what it's doing is they're trying to give visual cues on what these numbers mean to us and how they will affect us in our daily lives. And hopefully that'll start people thinking on, thinking about alternatives. But as for right now, we're talking lots about, biodiesel, different alternative energy sources, and the pros and cons of that. And it is very difficult to actually find the one that you really want to start investing all your money into, or really say, this is going to be the ticket, because they're few and far between on how much is actually proven to be effective.
One of the really exciting social movements around the world is called transition towns, and they take on exactly this question of peak oil and what are we as communities around the world going to do when oil does peak. And there are lots and lots of good economic analyses of when it's going to peak and what kind of crash is going to happen. But the transition towns movement, and as it's embraced here in the city, it's called Village Vancouver, says it doesn't really matter when it's going to happen. The point is it's not sustainable. So let's start now living again as if we were in a village. Let's start making ourselves able to be completely self-reliant with our food. So food security and food sovereignty is a really big part of the movement. Learning how to reskill and be really sustainable with everything that we need for daily living, our clothing, food, shelter, everything. So one of the things that Village Vancouver does a lot in Vancouver is teaching people all about canning your food, preserving your food, how to heat your home naturally and sustainably, how to grow bees, how to have backyard chickens. We have workshops almost every week on how you can learn to live as if we lived in the old days, because those are the kinds of reskilling and retooling things that we're going to need to do to make our lifestyle sustainable again.
I do research in the area of CO2 capture and alternative fuels as well. So every time I speak to students, that also comes about. To me, I do think that it is a race against time. However, as an educator and somebody who has hope, my role is to give hope and to instill in the students that they, first of all, need to be made aware and know that there are choices that they should look at. And those are the discussions and reflection sort of exercises that we've done through the course that I, sometimes when I sort of feel really low in energy, I read those things and say, next generation may be okay too. And so that's what I try to do in my courses.
Thank you for all those responses. So lots of opportunities for learning is outlined there. And I see a question from Yael, and it's probably the last question we're going to be able to take. Yeah.
Okay, it's almost more of a comment than a question. To add to that, I think that question about carbon-based economy and how is that at all sustainable, and it makes me just think of the kind of social and economic sustainability dimensions that are parallel to that question. So kind of on a global economic scale, having some countries that are extremely wealthy and other countries that are basically providing raw materials for us to be able to continue our wealth. You know, that is the same sort of parallel in the sense that people don't want to have that conversation, and that's one I think that we shy away from at the university as well, and around capitalism and global capitalism, and are there alternatives, or people are really uncomfortable going there, but that I also think that's part of our responsibility as well.
Well, yeah, you and I speak the same language, obviously. So, yes, I agree that we at the university do need to tackle the really big social problems. That's what I talked about in my little address. And we need to address racism, we need to address imperialism, we need to address all the inequities as they exist on the planet, because that's part of what's leading us to this completely unsustainable drive to the finish. And so, so I really believe that we are, as a planet, kind of on the edge of a cliff. And we have a choice right now whether we're going to sprout wings or whether we're just going to dive off the cliff. And so I think for us as educators and us at a university, our job really is to start sprouting those wings and to encourage students to sprout wings and to teach us all to fly.
Thank you so much. And I think we're going to end on that note, actually. I think that was a great note to finish on. This is really the beginning of a conversation, or the continuation of a conversation, hopefully, that you have started or that you're interested in continuing beyond. I wanted to just do a couple pitches for the Sustainability Across the Curriculum Community of Practice. If you go to the CTLT website, then there's a number of communities of practice listed there. Sustainability is one of them. Global citizenship. Is there an equity and diversity one particularly under global citizenship? There's a lot of different types of communities of practice. all of the coordinators, I think, are interested in feedback about the kinds of activities and conversations and actions that you would like to see happening there. You can also find out more information about the SEI. You can access the RefWorks with the resources around sustainability and sustainability education. And Jean has also left some bookmarks for the broader USI agenda. So I would just like to really thank all our panelists very much. Please join me in thanking them. And thank you all for the conversation, and looking forward to it continuing.
And I'd also like to thank Yona for expertly facilitating this panel. Thank you very much. So we're moving into a break right now, so we'll take a 15-minute break and be back in time for 2:30 for our next session, which is focused on Aboriginal engagement.